You know, this has been a really weird January. Obviously we have the regular films that come out, but then we also have these Oscar award films, and even in a pandemic, there's still that one film that already is one of the worst things of the entire year. Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this is going to be another epic rant, the first epic rant of 2021, and it's for a movie that I've been waiting to review for a while now. It's for a film that I the second that I heard that it was a thing, I was absolutely dreading every second of it, and it's a film that I did watch a little while back, but it's just taken me forever to finally sit down and actually do an epic rant for it, and that's for Run, Hide, Fight. And look, this movie, I mean, right off the bat, everything about it, I think it just sounded so dumb, but also just sounded so tasteless, because I don't even really need to tell you the premise of this movie. It's this girl, and she's going through her senior year of high school, and all of a sudden a school shootout ends up breaking out, and she has to do what she can to try to save everyone. And that's a fine premise. I don't have a problem with that, but the idea of them doing it as basically an action film of sorts, that was always a very weird choice, and something that I definitely was not very much down for at all. And especially knowing that the Daily Wire was behind it, that also did not get me very excited. Now, let me address that right off the bat. Daily Wire is behind this movie. Yes, like I said, that's something that did very much uninterest me, but taking that out of the equation, this is still a horrible film in basically every way, and it really does not have much to do with the politics at hand. There's maybe two political references in this entire movie. Aside from that, it's just a really horribly made and very misguided film that I can't believe actually got approved in the way that it did. There's so many things that I hate when it comes to this film. And like I said, guys, it took me a long time to finally sit down and record this review. I tried doing it yesterday, and I just was not in the mood to do it. But I figured, you know what, if I don't do it now, I'll never end up doing it. So we're just going to dive into everything, starting off with the cast here. And oh my god, what can we even say about the cast in this movie? I mean, every single actor in this film is giving the absolute wrong type of performance. And what I mean by that is, for the characters that they are playing, their acting does not work for the role. Let's talk about Isabel May. Good actress, may I say. Good actress. I've enjoyed her on the show Alexa and Katie that I've watched with my good friend 22 Tiger Dude. She's very likable and very fun on that show, and I really did like her, and I'm all for her getting more work. I love the fact that she is getting more work. I don't like the fact that the work that she's getting is in a film like this one, because her entire performance is just completely the wrong way. Considering this is supposed to be our main character, she could not be more unlikable. She's so cynical and sardonic and just really rude to everyone. It seems like every single person that she comes across, she either wants nothing to do with or just straight up doesn't care much about and doesn't really have much of an opinion on. So it's very hard to latch onto her as a character. She just isn't very likable in the role. It doesn't feel like May did really anything to elevate this character. There's already so many problems when it comes to this character, which I'll get into, but May does absolutely nothing to elevate what is a really horrible role to begin with, and that's what really just disappointed me here, because like I said, I know she can act. I know that she can do a good job when she needs to. She can turn out a good performance, but here, she just could not give less of a shit, and I can't necessarily say I blame her, because the material she has is garbage, but her performance is just really bad in this film, and definitely one of the worst parts of the entire movie. The whole time, she has this very dry sort of delivery, and it just no emotion is convincing here. You don't find yourself caring about her at all. It's just a horrible performance all around, but it's not even the worst performance in this movie. Easily the worst performance in this movie has to be from Eli Brown, who plays one of the school shooters. He plays our main villain here of Tristan, and Oh my god, everything about his performance shows he has a fundamental misunderstanding of how school shooters actually work, because everything he's saying in this sort of voice, and it never sounds genuine. It's like, that's not the voice of a school shooter. That's the voice of a movie villain, like some like action movie villain. And not only is it so deeply insensitive, it just, nothing about it feels authentic. Nothing about it feels like you can get behind this character. He doesn't feel like a real person. There's no motivation as to why he's doing this through his performance, and he just really falls flat in this film. It just, again, he's really hamming it up here, and it does not work at all. I really hated his performance throughout this entire movie. I thought he did a horrible job in this film overall. Really everyone here. I mean, Olly Sholotan, who plays Zoe's boyfriend, he's really annoying in this movie. They're trying to make him like the comedic relief. It does not work for a second. He just does not do a good job in this film. Even the actors that you recognize in here, like say Radha Mitchell, who plays Zoe's mom, Jennifer, she seems bored in this movie. Thomas Jane could not give less of a fuck in this film. He doesn't want to be here. He is sleepwalking throughout this entire role. There isn't a single performance in this movie that, like I said, elevates this already horrible material. And when you have an already terrible cast, everything else falls flat as a result, which, I mean, I guess we'll just get into the directing here, which I really don't know what Kyle Rankin was thinking when it comes to the directing in this movie. In fact, I'm very confused by his directing in this movie, because when you look at the way that this movie is being promoted, it's being promoted as a film that, oh, leftists are gonna hate it, and oh, this is a movie that, shows what really happens during school shootings and things like that, which, all right, I'm perfectly fine with that. You want to give me a raw, authentic experience, that's fine. But what doesn't make sense is, why would you say that when this entire film is basically portraying this as an action film? It is exploiting school shootings. I don't find anything about this informative. I don't find anything about this realistic. I find it exploitative, and that's what makes it so offensive to me. But it also just feels very confused. I don't know if this was the original approach that they wanted to go with, but whatever that was got completely lost in translation, because Rankin's approach to this movie, it just feels all wrong. The moments that are supposed to feel dramatic, again, they don't feel the way. They're too heightened, or they're not dramatic enough. The moments that are supposed to feel a bit relieving, again, they just feel unrealistic, and nothing about what he does in this movie tonal wise really does work. And honestly, it's very hard to tell what message he's trying to send with this movie. I don't understand what his entire message is really supposed to be here. What am I supposed to take away from this? I really can't tell you, and I that's another thing that just really brings this entire film down for me. I think his directing is so bad here, but his screenplay as well, holy shit. I mean, there are so many things that don't work about this film. I mean, the school shooting alone, I'll get into that, but let's talk about just our main character for a second. The character of Zoe. Holy shit. I mean, this is one of the worst main characters and one of the most unlikable main characters that I can think of in recent memory. The fact that her entire character is basically just one mode throughout the entire movie, and that's just annoyed. She's annoyed with everyone. She's annoyed at the world. She's annoyed at her boyfriend for asking her to prom. She's annoyed at her father. You think there's a reasoning for that. You think that maybe there'd be a reasoning for her to do that, because literally every single person in this movie, she's just so incredibly rude to, and it doesn't feel like she seems to care about much of anything that's going on. And right off, like I said, it's very hard to give a shit about her as a character. She's supposed to be the hero in the story, and considering that you open up the film with her father teaching her how to shoot a deer, that's probably not the best way to open up your film and get you to really like our main character. It alienates you right away, and it doesn't really get any better from there. But then you also have this side story where, you think maybe she's lost her mother, and she's grieving over her mother, and she constantly gets these sort of, visions of her mother, or at least some voice that appears as a manifestation of her mother. And you would think that maybe, when she's talking to her mother, this is when we get to see the more, toned down, more authentic, more vulnerable side of Zoe. We get to sort of peel back the layers of her. No, even her mother, she's a bitch to. She wants nothing to do with her throughout this entire movie, and so you're wondering, why is she like this? Why does she care so much that her mother died? Why is she having these visions of her mother if she wants nothing to do with her? And so throughout the entire movie, you just have no reason to care for our main character, and that really brings this entire film down. Again, the film is almost acting like Die Hard in a sense. It's clear that's what the movie is trying to go for, but the thing that works so well about John McClane is that he generally cared about the people that he was saving. He generally cared about what he was doing. Zoe does not really seem to care all that much. She really just kind of wants to get out of this as unscathed as possible, and again, she just is such an unlikable character in that way, and I don't think they do a good job with her at all. But then you look at the other characters in this movie, the school shooters themselves. I mean, you would think the film is trying to give you a motivation as to why they're doing this, or what's really going on here. What is the reasoning for them really going about this whole thing? How would this whole thing come about? Well, there is a reasoning, but it's a very minute reasoning. The film takes no time to really get you to get inside the head of these school shooters or get you to see what they're doing before they plan this whole thing. No, the film literally just rushes through it. We start off the movie, everything's going fine, and then there's this huge, I think it's like a truck. It just crashes through the school. These 4 goth type kids come out, all looking like school shooters, and again, it just feels so stereotypical in that way. So the fact that so many people are saying oh, this is what really happens in a school shooting, bullshit, absolute bullshit. There is no way that any of what we're seeing here actually happens. There's no way any of what is being shown actually happens. Am I saying that there aren't people like this? Yeah, no, I'm not saying that. There definitely are people like this, but the way that every character in this movie is basically a stereotype, I think is, again, going about it completely the wrong way. I mean, Tristan, like I said, as a villain, there's really nothing to him other than he clearly just wants attention of some sort, and he wants to tell people what to do. He wants to gain control, and just how boring of a motivation is that? How boring of a story really is that for him? There's nothing really there's nothing beyond the surface of that. It's so surface level and so lazy in that way. And I don't think they did a very good job with constructing that very much at all. But there are also so many things that just don't really make sense. Like when this school shooting is happening, half of the school for some reason doesn't know what's going on. They're just kind of going about their day until other people are alerting them, and that to me, it just made zero sense. I mean, you see the staff throughout this movie, and they don't really seem overly concerned. There are multiple points where the students are trying to reach out to them and get them to exit the school, and they just straight up ignore them, and I just don't think that this is something that would happen. I mean, school shootings are pretty common. They don't happen a ton, obviously, but they've happened more than enough to where this is something that schools should be prepared for. When I went to high school, we did all kinds of lockdown drills and things like that in the event that something like this would happen. We do it even in my college as well. So the fact that they're acting like this isn't happening, the fact they're just kind of going about their day, I don't buy it at all. It's just so phony in that way, and they don't do a good job, again, with fleshing out any of these characters or getting you to really understand where they're coming from. And again, the teachers and the staff in this movie, it just doesn't feel believable that they would act in the way that they do, that they'd straight up ignore their students when, again, they're supposed to be prepared for this kind of thing. They're supposed to be prepared in the event that something like this ends up happening, and it never really works very much at all. All right, I know there's a cut in this video. I don't usually do this when it comes to epic rants, but there is one thing that I neglected to mention in this that also really pissed me off. So there's a whole portion of this film that is dedicated to everyone engaging in senior prank day. They're all so excited for it. And yeah, that is something that happens in high school. But what they essentially do with that is the only reason that is there is so they can excuse a lot of what actually goes on. You know, anytime kids are like frantically yelling or running around, the teachers are just kind of ignoring them because, oh, it's just part of the prank. Oh, there's, there's balloons near where all this is taking place. So, oh, it's just another part of the prank. And it's like, this is just a really, again, horrible idea. The idea of the senior prank is not bad, but the way that they're basically just using it as a really dumb plot device just doesn't really make a lot of sense. It feels like there's so many points in this movie where characters could act out or react in a normal way, but they don't. They're very, overly militant. Like, the school shooter tells them to just keep streaming, but then never do really anything else. And it's just so boring to watch. And I think the taking that school prank thing out of it would actually make this film a lot better, because then it would actually not take forever for something to actually happen in this movie. And I think it would just be a much better movie as a result. Anyway, back to the review. I know, like I said, I don't normally do cuts, but this was just one exception. Back to the review. There's so many horrible ideas in this movie. I already talked about Zoe's boyfriend, who he shows up in the beginning of the film. He's asking her out to prom. You think he's gonna be this really prominent part of the movie, but no. Most of the film, what is he doing? Holding a phone, broadcasting Tristan's, shooting that's going on. That's literally all he does throughout this entire movie. He does absolutely nothing. There's no point for his character to be here. I don't understand why he is in this movie. It seemed like they wanted to give her some, fun sidekick, but again, they do absolutely nothing with him. And again, the way that they're trying to portray this, it just never really works at all. Almost every single idea in this movie is terrible. I mean, there's a whole scene where you have this guy who's like a news reporter, and he's reporting on the subject, and you have this police officer intervene and be like to him, oh, we don't want to, exploit what's going on. It's like, you fucking hypocrite, because the whole movie is exploiting school shootings. So again, I don't want to hear anything about that throughout the rest of this film. Again, so many things that just don't really work here at all. There's so many characters that just feel so lifeless in that way, and they really just, there's no depth given to anyone in this movie. I just don't think they did a very good job with really anything in this film. There are just, again, so many things that just don't really work here at all. There maybe is one good idea in this entire movie. And again, it's an idea. It's an idea that I actually don't hate. And the idea is they try to connect Zoe and one of the perpetrators in this movie. You realize that he isn't as bad as the rest of them. They try to connect them together, and I get what they were trying to do. But the reasoning of why he's doing this is fucking ridiculous. It seems like something that maybe would cause him to think about doing this, but not actually do it. It's something that, again, it feels so minuscule. It doesn't feel like a big deal. It feels, again, like a rough draft. So much of this movie, on the other hand, honestly feels like a rough draft. And I think that's the perfect example of it. I don't, again, think the idea of showing how Zoe and this one character are very similar, I don't hate that idea at all. But what I do hate is what they're actually trying to do. They're trying to make it seem like, oh, you talk things over and things are just fine. It's like, no, that's not what would realistically happen. I don't think you're going to convert someone that easily. If someone has that motivation, it's very hard to talk them out of it, because again, school shooters are mentally ill most of the time. They're mentally deranged. There's something wrong with them. They're not these, preppy sort of superhero, super villains that are always on top of things. That's just not the way they are. A lot of the time they are very mentally disturbed, and the film never really takes an opportunity to dive into that. And that was something else that just really bothered me with this film. The dialogue here is just absolutely terrible as well. There's so many lines that just made me cringe throughout this entire movie. So many things that just don't really work out. And the other thing that I will say that I was very surprised about with this movie, well, actually, not that surprised about, considering again how fucking surface level and insensitive this whole thing is that there really is no time given to see any of these students react to what's going on. When they eventually are out of this situation, nobody really seems that traumatized by what happened. They all just kind of seem fine. Even the parents are kind of just over it, and it's like, your kid could have been shot. Like, think about this. Your kid literally could have been shot if you did not leave for a few more seconds. If brave Zoe didn't come in and save the day, then your kid would have been shot. And then you have the students, and you're thinking about the people that they've lost. And there never is that moment to reflect on anything. There never is that moment where anyone seems that overtly concerned with what's going on. And I just don't buy it. I feel like when you experience a trauma like that, that's something that you don't forget. That's something that has an impact on you. But again, because of the fact the film is made by the Daily Wire, they don't care about your feelings. We're just gonna gloss over all of that because who cares about the aftermath? We just care about the tragedy itself. Nobody cares about what actually happens after, even though that is inherently more interesting than what we're actually getting and would have actually elevated the movie, I think, if we would have gotten to see who some of these characters are, who they were before this, how they processed this situation. None of that is done throughout this entire movie, and it just brings the entire thing down for me. So again, there's so many things script-wise that just don't work here. Cinematography-wise, I think this film is very amateurly made. A lot of the scenes are just really dumb in this movie. A lot of the fight choreography as well really does leave a lot to be desired here. The gunshots, they look very fake. And the other thing that really bothered me throughout this entire movie is that our main character, Zoe, you would think that she does put up a pretty good fight, and that's great, but you would also think that she's someone that, is going through a lot here. Maybe she gets shot or something like that, and she does. But for some reason, even though she clearly is, going through a lot of damage throughout this movie, both physically and emotionally, the film never wants to show it. She comes out of situations looking completely fine, looking completely unharmed. There is not a spat of blood or scar or anything like that. She is just fine. And I don't understand this choice. I don't understand why they decided to go about it this way. Because again, it just strips all the realism out of this film. And again, I understand, it's just trying to be an action movie, but why are you then saying this is supposed to be an authentic experience? Like, it's so confusing to me. I don't understand why they're going about it in the way that they did it all. Again, the school itself it looks so fake. It looks like a set. Everything about this movie, it just looks very artificial in that way, and they just don't do a very good job in terms of the cinematography in this film. And then the editing in this movie as well. I think this film is edited in completely the wrong way. In fact, I was watching this with a few friends, and I kind of came to this conclusion. I think this movie would be way better if it was done almost in a chapter structure. Like, you could have had the before the shooting, getting to see all these characters, not really knowing how they're linked together, but knowing that eventually they are going to come together in some way. And then, you build up a lot of the suspense, you build up their storylines. So then when we get to the actual shooting, we're generally invested in it. It's not this truck just coming right the fuck out of nowhere and half the school not acknowledging what's going on. No, we actually do get to see we do actually understand why they're doing this. We do understand what's going on. The characters are acting in a normal way, and I think it would have just made everything that much better. We maybe could have gotten even more into Zoe's, tragedy with her mother and whatnot. They could have maybe dived into that a bit more, but they really don't. And then you could have had the aftermath where you really do see how all of them are, trying to recover from this, even though it's a very hard and very traumatic experience. They're doing everything they can to try to go about their lives, even though it's nearly impossible for them to really do that. But again, there is no attempt to dive into any of that here. The film, again, it just goes about things in a very surface level manner. It's always so fast paced, and I think it really just hurts the film overall. There's no point, like I said, where the film just takes a second to really slow down and process everything. No, we just need to have these ridiculous action sequences that feel more like something out of Die Hard than what would actually happen. And so, again, just every single thing about this movie fails. Every single idea in this movie really does fail. It's a film that says it wants to be this realistic experience, but it's done in such a Hollywood way that I can't believe that that's actually the intention that they were going for. It has actors that feel like they have no business really being there, and an ending. Oh my god, the ending to this movie. The way things wrap up here. I mean, if this is really the message that they're trying to go for, that in itself is very problematic, and I can't believe this is actually the way they decided to end off this movie. I think if there is anything that people will be disturbed by in this movie, and something that will send absolutely the wrong message, it's the ending to this film. It's done in such a shameless and again, thoughtless manner. Nobody really took the time to think, maybe we shouldn't go about it in this way. Maybe we shouldn't execute this scene this way. Maybe we should redo this. Maybe we should rethink of the way we're going about this movie. No, they did this in the most shameful way possible. They did this clearly because they thought they could, and now it's a film that people are praising for entirely the wrong reason, and I just don't really understand why this film is getting the praise from some people that it really is. I truly think every single element of this film really doesn't work at all. It has a main character that is so deeply unlikable in that way, and just so many ridiculous situations where she comes out of it completely unharmed, and it's just so unbelievable in that way. Run, Hide, Fight is truly a morally reprehensible film in basically every single definition possible. It is absolutely the worst film I have seen so far this year, and I am going to give it an F.
Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you!
Again, I want to say at the top, my feelings on this movie, the way I feel about it, it really has nothing to do with the politics itself. Yes, that's something that is in the movie. Yes, it does bother me, but just as a film, I think it's just so horribly made, and I really think it's a film that they should have thought twice about before releasing it. But either way, guys, in my review of Run, Hide, Fight, let me know what you guys saw this movie, left your thoughts on it. If you have seen it, I mean, please don't watch this movie. If it is something that is, it gives you a bit of curiosity and things like that, it's just, please avoid it. There are much better films out there, I'm sure, about school shootings. Hell, there's one I just saw at Sundance called Mass that covers this subject way fucking better than this movie does. So watch that. Just avoid this as much as you really can. That's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoy it. Like I said, I apologize for this video being late, but I just really haven't had the time to do anything until now. Between Sundance and all these other games and orgs and things like that I'm playing, I just really have not had the time to review a film until now. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoy it. We'll see you guys in my next video, which I promise will be for something better than this, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.